Hello, sweetheart. Every thought that enters your mind is far more than a flicker of energy that comes and goes without consequence. Thoughts are seeds. They carry within them the potential to blossom into experiences, actions, and ultimately the very structure of your life. The way you live today, the way you respond to challenges, the quality of your relationships, the depth of your happiness, all of these are deeply rooted in the kind of thoughts you nurture. People often underestimate this. They imagine that thoughts are fleeting, that they pass through the mind like clouds across the sky and disappear without leaving a mark. But the truth is, even clouds affect the weather. Similarly, even a single recurring thought alters the climate of your inner world. The hidden power of thoughts lies in their ability to build momentum. A thought, once entertained, gathers weight, becomes familiar, and eventually carves a path within the mind. Think of it as water flowing over stone. At first, a single drop may seem insignificant, unable to change anything solid. But given time, repetition, and persistence, that same flow will hollow the rock itself. This is how thoughts work. They etch patterns into your consciousness, and those patterns become the framework through which you perceive and interact with life. If you constantly think of limitations, soon limitations become all you see. If you constantly think of possibilities, opportunities begin to reveal themselves where others see none. To recognize the hidden power of your thoughts is to realize that you are never a passive participant in life. You are the co-creator of your reality. Your mind is not a theater where random plays are performed for your amusement. It is a workshop where the blueprints of your future are being drafted at every moment. If those blueprints are filled with fear, doubt, and smallness, then the structure of your life cannot rise above those designs. But if the blueprints are filled with courage, clarity, and vision, then life will reflect that height and expansiveness. Challenge is that most people go through life without recognizing that they are designing it all. They assume the script has already been written, not realizing they are writing it every day with the pen of their thoughts. What you hold in your mind long enough inevitably begins to seep into your actions. A person who constantly entertains thoughts of failure will approach every task with hesitation, already defeated before they begin. A person who entertains thoughts of strength will carry themselves with a subtle confidence that invites respect and possibility. The hidden power of thought does not simply exist in theory. It is observed in daily life. The student who believes they are not intelligent closes the door to learning before they open the book. The worker who tells themselves they are trapped in mediocrity closes the path to advancement before they try. Yet the one who thinks, "I can rise," discovers the courage to act in ways that make rising possible. Your outer world is nothing but a mirror of your inner thought world. Look around at your life, your successes, your struggles, your relationships, your financial condition, even your health. Much of it reflects the way you have consistently thought about yourself and the world. If you see patterns repeating, cycles of disappointment, cycles of fear, it is not simply fate or bad luck. It is the mind rehearsing the same script over and over. When you shift the script, the performance changes. But here lies the subtle power. Thoughts not only shape your reality, they shape you. They form the character of your being. If you indulge in angry thoughts, you slowly become an angry person. If you nourish compassionate thoughts, compassion becomes your nature. Thoughts create grooves in consciousness, and soon those grooves feel like your very identity. Recognizing this gives you the power to take responsibility for what kind of person you are becoming. The hidden power of thoughts, then, is not in some mystical abstraction. It is immediate and practical. It is evident every time you decide to see yourself as capable instead of broken. Every time you choose to see a challenge as an opportunity instead of a punishment. The mind bends reality because the mind is the lens through which reality is interpreted, and interpretation determines experience. The same event can break one person and empower another, depending on what thoughts they choose to hold about it. If you want to change your life, you must start here, with the invisible, with the silent, with the private world of your own thoughts. You must become conscious of what you are repeatedly telling yourself. Because every thought you allow to linger plants a seed, and whether you notice it or not, it will grow. And when it grows, it will bear fruit. Sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet, depending entirely on what was planted. This is why the first great step to transformation is not in action, but in awareness. Before you speak, before you act, before you decide, the thought comes first. To realize this is to reclaim your power. For if you can direct the thoughts, you can direct the life. To ignore it is to live as a prisoner, guided by unexamined patterns. To awaken to it is to become free, the master of your inner world, and therefore the master of your destiny. Most people assume that their thoughts are random, like leaves carried by the wind, arriving without reason and leaving without impact. But this is a misunderstanding of the mind. Thoughts do not simply fall from the sky. They are shaped by patterns, habits, and the silent stories you have told yourself for years. The illusion of random thinking is one of the greatest traps of human consciousness. When you believe your thoughts are accidental, you stop noticing how deeply they are connected to the life you live. In truth, every thought has a lineage. It arises from past experiences, repeated conditioning, and the beliefs you have accepted without question. Consider the moments when your mind drifts. Perhaps you are walking in silence, and suddenly a worry appears. What if I fail? What if things don't work out? You think this is random, but it is not. That thought is the echo of a story you have rehearsed many times, a story rooted in fear and insecurity. Or imagine yourself daydreaming about success, about living a bigger life. Even that is not random. It is an expression of your deepest longing, something that has whispered within you for years. What feels like spontaneity is, in fact, repetition. The mind loops through familiar routes, circling the same roads over and over. This is why so many people feel stuck. They believe life is unchangeable because their thoughts seem to arise without control. They mistake familiarity for randomness, but when you trace these thoughts carefully, you see the pattern. The same fears, the same doubts, the same criticisms, playing like a broken record. The mind becomes conditioned to feed you the same narrative, and you, if unconscious, accept it as truth. A person who has thought for years, "I am not good enough," will find those words surfacing even in moments of success. A person who has often told themselves, "Life is unfair," will notice misfortune more readily than blessings. In this way, thoughts reinforce themselves, each one strengthening the next, until they form a wall that cages the mind. The illusion of randomness is dangerous because it convinces you that you are powerless. You begin to believe that thoughts are intruders, you cannot stop, that your role is only to endure them. But the deeper reality is that you are the one who has allowed certain thoughts to take root, and you are the one who can choose differently. It is not easy, for the patterns are old and stubborn, but it is possible. The mind is like a river that has carved its course through the land for centuries. It will keep flowing the same way unless you redirect it. And yet, with awareness and persistence, you can change its path. Notice the subtle trick here. The moment you think a thought is random, you stop questioning it. You let it pass unchecked. If it is a thought of fear, it adds weight to your anxiety. If it is a thought of doubt, it chips away at your confidence. Slowly you become shaped not by choice, but by neglect. But once you realize the illusion, you begin to see differently. You begin to ask, why this thought? Where did it come from? Do I want it to live here? This questioning weakens the grip of unconscious patterns. To control your life, you must first see through this illusion. You must recognize that every thought has a cause. And because it has a cause, it can be transformed. When you recognize the origin of a thought, you take back your authority. you are no longer the victim of mental noise, but the observer who can choose whether to nurture or dismiss it. And the thoughts you nurture will grow strong enough to reshape the patterns. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you allow random seeds to fall and grow, soon weeds overrun the soil, and you wonder why nothing beautiful survives. But if you see that weeds are not random, they come from neglect, you understand the solution. You begin to pull them out one by one and plant with intention. The same is true of your thoughts. Left unchecked, they will choke the life you wish to create. Tended with care, they will grow into the vision you desire. The greatest freedom comes when you realize that random thinking is an illusion. Thoughts are visitors you have invited many times, whether consciously or unconsciously. You cannot control the first flicker of a thought appearing in your mind, but you can control whether it stays, whether it repeats, and whether it defines you. This awareness is liberation. Suddenly, you are no longer enslaved by old narratives. You see them for what they are. Habits, not truths, and a habit, unlike fate, can be broken. The illusion dissolves the moment you become conscious. When you recognize that the thought arising is the echo of your past, you are free to decide that your future will not echo the same way. This is the beginning of mastery, the understanding that your mind is not a chaotic storm but a patterned sky, and that you hold the power to clear it. From that place, your life begins to shift, not by accident but by intention. What you experience in life is never separate from what you think. The connection between your mind and the reality around you is so intimate that it often goes unnoticed. Thoughts are not silent bystanders. They are active shapers of how you perceive the world and how you respond to it. If you carry heavy, fearful thoughts, the world feels threatening. If you carry hopeful, empowering thoughts, the world appears full of possibility. Life is not simply what happens to you. It is filtered, colored, and defined by the thoughts you consistently hold. Consider how two people can face the same situation and yet live entirely different experiences. One encounters failure and sees it as proof of their inadequacy, while the other sees the same failure as a stepping stone, a lesson, a necessary passage to success. The event is the same, but the thought world of each person creates a different reality. This is the profound link between the inner and the outer. The way you think does not just interpret life, it generates the quality of your life itself. Your thoughts are the architects of your emotional state. If you continually focus on what is lacking, dissatisfaction grows. If you dwell on gratitude, contentment deepens. This does not mean denying reality. It means recognizing that reality is always interpreted through the lens of the mind. Two eyes see the same sunset, but one feels awe while the other remains indifferent. The difference is not in the sunset. It is in the thoughts that shape the perception. This link between mind and experience extends into your body as well. Thoughts influence not only how you feel emotionally, but how you feel physically. Anxiety, born of fearful thinking, tightens the chest, speeds the heart, and drains energy. Calm, cultivated by steady and positive thought, relaxes the body and renews strength. The body responds to the mind because the two are inseparable. To change the quality of your life, you must begin with the quality of your thoughts. Think of your mind as a projector and your life as the screen. Whatever film runs within you is cast outward, creating the story you experience. If the film is filled with limitation, the world will appear to close in on you. If the film is filled with vision, the world will seem to open with opportunity. The screen does not decide what it shows, it merely reflects what is projected. Likewise, the world often reflects what you carry within. This is why your habitual thoughts are so crucial. A fleeting thought may pass without much impact, but a repeated thought becomes a belief. And beliefs are powerful, for they are the silent rules you live by. If you believe you are unworthy, you will unconsciously act in ways that confirm it. You will hesitate, you will accept less than you deserve, and you will miss doors that were open to you. If you believe you are capable, you will move with conviction, speak with confidence, and attract possibilities. The thoughts you repeat become the patterns of your experience. Truly see this link is to awaken to your responsibility. For too long, people think life is happening to them without realizing they are shaping it with every silent story they tell themselves. The words you whisper in your mind are not harmless. They are instructions to your reality. If you continually tell yourself that people cannot be trusted, you will unconsciously seek out situations that prove it. If you tell yourself that life supports your growth, you will notice opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. The most subtle and yet most powerful truth is that you are always living inside the world your thoughts create. The outer world may seem vast and uncontrollable, but your inner world is where the true power lies. By changing what you habitually think, you begin to change what you consistently experience. This does not mean you will control every event, but it does mean you will transform how those events affect you. And when you change your response, you change your direction. Imagine carrying a thought of defeat every day. Slowly, it seeps into your actions. You hesitate, you avoid risks, you shrink back from challenges. Life then begins to mirror this posture, giving you fewer opportunities and more reasons to feel defeated. But imagine carrying a thought of resilience every day. With it, you move forward even when it's hard. You take chances, you endure setbacks, you keep going. Life mirrors this posture too, opening doors to those who walk toward them. The difference between defeat and growth is not simply circumstance. It is the thought that shapes how you engage with circumstance. The link between mind and experience is not a philosophy to be admired, but a reality to be lived. You are thinking right now, and those thoughts are quietly directing your emotions, shaping your mood, and influencing what you will do next. The choice lies in whether you allow them to flow unconsciously, repeating old stories, or whether you guide them consciously, choosing thoughts that align with the life you wish to create. Once you recognize this link, life becomes less of a struggle and more of an art. You no longer fight blindly against events. You work with your mind, knowing that when you change the seed, the fruit must also change. This is not instant magic. It is steady cultivation. But over time, the patterns of thought you build will weave into the fabric of your reality until your outer world reflects the transformation of your inner one. You cannot control what you are unaware of. This is the starting point of every inner transformation. Most people move through life believing they are thinking consciously, but in truth, their minds are running on autopilot. Thoughts appear, linger, and shape emotions without ever being questioned. One moment you feel joy, the next you are pulled into anxiety, and you never stop to ask, where did this shift begin? It began with a thought. But because you were not aware of it, you surrendered to its power unconsciously. Awareness, then, is not just a spiritual idea. It is the practical foundation of control. Without it, you are a captive of your own mind. With it, you begin to hold the keys to freedom. Think of the mind as a vast ocean. Beneath its surface, countless currents move silently, pulling you in different directions. If you're unaware, you drift helplessly, believing the tides of thought are fate. But once awareness dawns, you begin to notice the currents. You see which ones pull you toward despair, which ones lead you toward peace. The very act of seeing is the beginning of mastery, for you cannot redirect what you do not first observe. Awareness is like turning on the light in a dark room. In the dark, you stumble, bumping into furniture, feeling trapped by obstacles you cannot identify. Switch on the light, and suddenly you see clearly. The obstacles may remain, but you are no longer their victim. You can navigate around them. In the same way, thoughts in an unconscious mind become obstacles, controlling you invisibly, but when the light of awareness shines, you recognize them for what they are. Passing mental events, not absolute truths. This is why awareness is so essential. Many people try to control their lives by forcing external change, switching jobs, altering relationships, chasing new goals. And yet, they remain bound to the same patterns because the thoughts that shape those patterns are unseen. You cannot change a house by painting over cracks if the foundation itself is unstable. You must see the structure beneath. Awareness is seeing that structure. It reveals not only the thoughts themselves, but also the stories and beliefs that gave birth to them. The simple question, what am I thinking right now, has the power to disrupt the unconscious stream. At first, you may be surprised to discover how much of your inner dialogue is repetitive, often negative, and deeply self-critical. But this recognition is not failure. It is progress. To notice the thought is already to weaken its hold. The moment you see the thought clearly, you are no longer fully identified with it. You are the observer, not the prisoner. That distance, however small, gives you choice. Awareness creates space. Instead of reacting instantly to every thought, you pause. You notice the anxious story rising, and in that pause, you ask, do I want to feed this? Without awareness, the thought would have consumed you, shaping your emotions and dictating your actions. With awareness, you have the power to let it pass, or to replace it with something more aligned with the life you wish to live. This space is where transformation begins. It is easy to underestimate awareness because it seems so subtle. People want bold strategies, instant solutions, visible results. But awareness is the soil in which all transformation grows. Without it, techniques become temporary patches. With it, every technique takes root because you are no longer operating blindly. Awareness allows you to see the patterns that sabotage you and the thoughts that empower you. And once you see, you cannot unsee. The illusion loses its power. To cultivate awareness is not about fighting thoughts or suppressing them. It is about watching them with clarity. You begin to notice the rhythm of your inner world, how certain memories trigger self-doubt, how certain expectations create pressure, how certain comparisons lead to jealousy. You see how one thought invites another, how quickly the mind spins stories, and in this seeing you begin to disentangle. You realize that the thoughts are not you, they are visitors. Some are welcome, some are not, but none define who you are. The practice of awareness is simple, though not easy. It requires patience and consistency. It can be as subtle as pausing in a moment of anger and asking, what story is my mind telling me right now? It can be as profound as sitting in silence, watching the flow of thoughts without judgment. Over time, this practice sharpens your vision. You begin to see the gap between thought and self, and in that gap lies your freedom. Without awareness, you are driven by unconscious conditioning. With awareness, you become a conscious creator. The difference is immense. One is a life of reaction, where you are pushed and pulled by every thought that arises. The other is a life of intention, where you see clearly and choose wisely. Awareness is not about controlling every thought. It is about knowing you have the choice to let go of what does not serve you and to cultivate what does. Awareness is the foundation of transformation because it brings you back to presence. When you are present, you are awake. You see the thought as it is, not as the truth it pretends to be. And once you see, you can choose. That is the essence of control. Not domination, not suppression, but conscious choice. Awareness is the doorway. Step through it, and you step into the power to change your life. The mind is rarely silent. It hums, it chatters, it repeats old stories and creates new ones, often without pause. Yet within that noise lies the reason so many people feel restless and exhausted, not because life itself is unbearable, but because their inner commentary never stops. To learn the discipline of inner silence is to reclaim your strength. It is not about denying thought altogether, but about discovering the stillness beneath it, the quiet space where clarity and power reside. Without that silence, you are tossed endlessly by the turbulence of your own mind. With it, you stand steady, able to direct your life with intention. Imagine standing beside a river in flood. The water rushes violently, carrying debris, mud, and noise. That is the ordinary mind, crowded with worries, judgments, and endless inner dialogue. Now imagine the same river, once the storm has passed, calm and clear, reflecting the sky. That is the silent mind, still, open, capable of reflecting truth without distortion. To live only in the flood is to live in confusion. To discover the calm is to discover clarity. Most people resist silence. They feel uncomfortable when the mind is not filled with something: music, conversation, planning, distractions. Silence reveals what has been ignored, and so it feels unfamiliar, even threatening. But this discomfort is the doorway to mastery. When you allow silence, you allow yourself to see the raw shape of your thoughts. You see how many are unnecessary, how many repeat like broken records, how many feed emotions that serve no purpose. Through silence, you gain perspective. Inner silence is not passivity. It is discipline. It takes strength to stop the compulsion to react to every thought. It takes practice to resist being pulled into every story the mind invents. But in that restraint, you uncover freedom. For the mind will always try to tempt you, reminding you of fears, replaying arguments, predicting disasters. If you answer every call, you are its servant. If you remain silent, you become its master. When you practice silence, even briefly, you begin to notice a shift. The thoughts continue to rise, but you are no longer entangled in them. They come and they go like birds flying across the sky, while you remain as the open space that holds them. This shift is profound. You realize you are not the thought itself, but the awareness in which the thought arises. And from that realization comes authority, the ability to choose which thoughts to act upon and which to release. There is tremendous power in the pause. When someone insults you, your first impulse might be anger. When failure appears, your first thought might be despair. But if you have cultivated inner silence, you do not immediately react. You breathe. You wait. In that pause, you can decide how to respond. Instead of anger, perhaps dignity. Instead of despair, perhaps resilience. Silence gives you the time to choose, and that choice changes everything. Without silence, you are reactive. With silence, you are intentional. The discipline of silence also nurtures creativity. When the mind is crowded, there is no space for new insight. But when it is quiet, inspiration can enter. Many great ideas, many solutions to difficult problems come not in the middle of frantic thinking, but in moments of stillness, walking alone, sitting quietly, simply observing. Silence is fertile soil where wisdom grows. Silence does not mean the permanent absence of thought. The mind is designed to think just as the heart is designed to beat. But silence means you are no longer dominated by the constant noise. You create intervals, spaces between the thoughts, like the rests between notes in music. Without those rests, music would be unbearable chaos. Without silence, the mind becomes the same, overwhelming and harsh. But with silence, life gains rhythm, beauty, and balance. Disciplining yourself into inner silence is not about withdrawal from life. It is about engaging with life more fully, because you are no longer distracted by every passing thought. You can listen to others with presence instead of rehearsing what to say next. You can work with focus instead of being pulled into endless internal chatter. You can experience the moment without the weight of constant commentary. Silence sharpens your attention and deepens your experience of living. The discipline requires practice. It may begin with small exercises, pausing to breathe before reacting, sitting quietly for a few minutes each day, observing the flow of thoughts without judgment. At first, the mind resists, flooding you with noise, demanding attention. But gradually, the resistance softens. Like a wild horse tamed by patience, the mind begins to obey. The noise lessens, the stillness expands, and within that stillness you discover strength you did not know you had. When silence becomes your habit, you carry it even into chaos. Life will continue to bring storms, challenges, unexpected trials. But within, you hold a quiet center that remains untouched. From this center, you act with calm rather than panic, with clarity rather than confusion. That is the true power of inner silence. It does not eliminate the storms, but it allows you to move through them with grace. The discipline of silence is the discipline of freedom. To quiet the noise is to reclaim your life from the endless chatter of the mind. In the silence, you find space to think clearly, to act wisely, to live fully. And it is in this silence that you realize the thoughts were never your master. They were only guests. You are the one who decides which to entertain and which to release. Silence gives you that authority. And with it, the ability to shape your life consciously instead of being unconsciously shaped by the noise. The mind is like a garden. Whatever is planted within it eventually grows, whether it is nourishing or poisonous. Many people live as though they have no control over what takes root in their consciousness. They allow weak, fearful, or self-defeating thoughts to settle in, never realizing that these thoughts, left unchecked, will soon grow strong enough to influence every choice, every relationship, and every opportunity they encounter. The truth is that your mind cannot remain empty. It will always grow something. The question is whether you allow weeds to spread or whether you deliberately cultivate strength, clarity, and vision. Weak thoughts are those that drain you before you even begin. They are the silent voices whispering, "I can't," "I'm not enough," "it's too late," or "why even try?" These thoughts are seductive because they give you an excuse not to act, not to risk, not to push beyond the comfort of what you already know. But while they seem harmless in the moment, over time they shape the very foundation of your being. If you water them with repetition and attention, they grow into limiting beliefs, and those beliefs become the prison walls of your life. Strong thoughts, on the other hand, are not just positive affirmations whispered into the void. They are deliberate, empowering seeds you choose to nurture. A strong thought says, "Even if I fail, I will learn." It says, "I am capable of growth." It says, "The challenge before me is not an obstacle, but an invitation to rise." Such thoughts do not deny difficulty. They acknowledge it while reminding you that you are greater than the difficulty. They do not make the path easier, but they give you the strength to walk it. Replacing weak thoughts with strong ones requires awareness and persistence. The weak thoughts will not vanish simply because you wish them away. They will return, persistent, knocking on the door of your mind with every setback, every disappointment, every reminder of the past. But the key is this: you do not have to let them in. Every time a weak thought arises, you have the chance to challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or is it holding me down? Does it reflect the life I want to create or does it chain me to the life I want to leave behind? By questioning it, you weaken its authority. Once you recognize a weak thought for what it is, you can choose to replace it with a stronger one. This is not about lying to yourself or pretending life is without pain. It is about shifting perspective. For example, instead of saying, "I failed, so I am worthless," you can replace it with, "I failed, but I am wiser now." Instead of thinking, "No one believes in me," you can say, "Belief begins within me," and that is enough to move forward. The strength of a thought lies not in its prettiness, but in its ability to energize you to act with courage. Think again of the garden. If weeds are left unchecked, they choke the life out of everything around them. The only way to cultivate beauty is through deliberate care. You must pull out the weeds repeatedly, for they return. You must water the plants you want to grow, for they require nourishment. The mind is no different. Every day you are given the chance to remove weak thoughts and water strong ones. Every day you can decide whether to let fear flourish or to let courage take root. The thoughts you choose to nurture will create a climate within you. Weak thoughts create an atmosphere of doubt, where opportunities feel threatening and risks feel impossible. Strong thoughts create an atmosphere of confidence where challenges feel like invitations and setbacks feel like temporary detours. This climate then attracts experiences that match it. A person filled with weak thoughts walks with hesitation, and life reflects that hesitation back to them. A person filled with strong thoughts walks with purpose, and life responds to that strength. Replacing weak thoughts with strong ones is also about identity. When you repeat a weak thought, you reinforce a small version of yourself. You say, "This is who I am, fragile, limited, powerless." But when you repeat strong thoughts, you slowly rewire your identity. You begin to embody the person who is resilient, capable, and determined. This is not about pretending to be something you are not. It is about uncovering what you already are, but have hidden beneath layers of doubt. It is important to remember that no one else can do this work for you. Others may encourage you, but they cannot plant your thoughts. They cannot choose which ones you nurture and which ones you release. That power belongs to you alone. And it is the greatest power you have, the power to decide what grows in the garden of your mind. Life is not shaped by the random thoughts that pass through you, but by the consistent thoughts you allow to stay. Weak thoughts may appear, but you do not have to feed them. Strong thoughts may take effort to plant, but once rooted, they grow into strength of character, clarity of vision, and resilience of spirit. If you want to change your life, begin here. Remove the weeds, plant strength, nurture it daily. For the harvest of your life depends entirely on the seeds you choose to grow within. When people hear the word discipline, they often imagine restriction, control, or even punishment. But in truth, discipline is one of the most liberating forces in human life. Without it, your energy scatters in 1,000 directions, your mind chases fleeting distractions, and your heart longs for change, yet fails to move consistently toward it. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom, it is its foundation. Think of it this way: a river without boundaries becomes a flood, destroying everything in its path. But a river with clear banks flows with strength and direction, nourishing the land around it. In the same way, discipline channels your energy, sharpens your focus, and allows you to create a life of meaning and impact. Discipline begins with small, repeated actions. It is not something you wait to feel motivated for. It is something you choose in spite of motivation's absence. The mistake most people make is thinking that success is born in big, dramatic leaps. In reality, success is built in the quiet repetition of simple habits. Waking up early when your body begs for more sleep, saying no to distractions when your mind craves comfort, working on your craft when no one applauds. These are the invisible victories that discipline brings. Day after day, discipline becomes the architect of your destiny, designing a life that chaos alone could never build. Consider how every great artist, athlete, or thinker has relied not on fleeting passion, but on unshakable discipline. The painter does not create masterpieces by waiting for inspiration to strike, but by standing before the canvas every single day, brush in hand. The athlete does not become great by training only when he feels like it, but by embracing the repetition, the sweat, and the sacrifice, even on the days his body protests. The thinker does not discover truth by only pondering when curiosity stirs, but by dedicating hours to study, reflection, and writing. Their greatness was not a single moment of brilliance, it was the consistency of discipline layered over years. Discipline also means learning to delay gratification. It is the ability to resist the pull of the immediate for the sake of the greater. We live in a culture that glorifies quick rewards, fast success, instant fame, immediate pleasure. But anything gained too quickly often vanishes just as easily. Discipline teaches you patience, endurance, and the strength to endure the discomfort of waiting. It whispers to you, not now, but later, not easy, but worth it. And in that waiting, in that training of the will, you become stronger than those who chase after quick fixes and hollow victories. Discipline is not about becoming rigid or harsh with yourself. It is about alignment. True discipline is not beating yourself into submission, but guiding yourself toward your highest values. It is asking, what matters most to me? And then shaping your daily actions to reflect that answer. When your values and your actions align, discipline stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like liberation. You no longer chase every impulse, nor are you enslaved by your moods. Instead, you move with intention, knowing that each choice builds toward a larger purpose. There will be days when discipline feels heavy, when every fiber of your being craves ease instead of effort. In those moments, remind yourself of the cost of neglect. Discipline may be difficult, but the absence of it is far more destructive. Without discipline, opportunities slip away, talents rot, relationships wither, and dreams die quietly. With discipline, however, you stand tall against the chaos of life. You become a builder, an artist, a warrior, someone who shapes rather than is shaped. Discipline also cultivates respect, not just from others, but from yourself. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, even the small ones, you grow in self-trust. You no longer rely on external validation because you know you can depend on your own word. Each time you show up, each time you push through resistance, you declare silently to yourself, I am someone who can be relied upon. This inner respect is priceless. It fuels confidence, resilience, and a sense of quiet power that cannot be taken away. Discipline is not the enemy of joy. It is the path to deeper joy. The undisciplined person may experience momentary pleasures, but their life is often marked by regret, frustration, and wasted potential. The disciplined person, on the other hand, may endure struggle in the short term, but they build a life of fulfillment, mastery, and meaning. Freedom without discipline is chaos. Discipline without freedom is oppression. But when discipline and freedom walk together, life finds its balance. You gain the freedom to pursue what truly matters, to live without the chains of regret, and to shape a destiny that reflects the best version of yourself. Embrace discipline, not as a punishment, but as a gift. Every time you choose the harder path, every time you stay consistent when no one is watching, every time you align your daily habits with your higher purpose, you are shaping a future that will be worth the sacrifice. Discipline is not about denying yourself life. It is about granting yourself the power to live it fully, intentionally, and beautifully. There comes a point in every journey where the weight of the path begins to test not only your strength, but also your patience, your vision, and your trust in what lies ahead. The eighth keynote invites us to embrace this very moment of testing not as a curse, but as a crucial turning point in transformation. Life has a way of placing barriers not to punish us, but to refine us. It is often when we feel pressed from every side, when resources appear scarce, and when we are tempted to abandon our dreams, that the most vital breakthroughs begin to take shape. The process of transformation is not about ease, it is about endurance. It is not meant to hand you comfort, but to strip you of the illusions that held you back and reveal the deeper capacity you hold within. Think about the seasons. A seed planted in the soil does not sprout immediately into a tree. It is buried in darkness, unseen, subject to pressure from the weight of the earth. Yet within that silence, within that unseen struggle, the seed is preparing for something extraordinary. It breaks open. It surrenders to its own becoming, and eventually it rises toward the light. Likewise, when we are in the middle of a trial, when life feels like it is burying us in uncertainty, what is really happening is preparation. We are being reshaped, strengthened, and forced to push beyond the limits of who we thought we were. Every difficulty has within it the possibility of expansion, but only if we are willing to remain steadfast. The most dangerous temptation in moments of trial is to give up just before the shift occurs. Many abandon their journey not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience. Transformation does not reward the impatient. It reveals itself to those who can wait with faith and continue with persistence. To endure is not to remain idle, but to keep walking even when the road seems endless. It is to act with discipline even when results are not visible. It is to trust the invisible process of growth, much like the farmer trusts the soil even before the harvest appears. Endurance also reshapes your relationship with pain. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, you begin to understand it as a teacher. Every challenge teaches you something vital about yourself, where your limits are, how much strength you still carry, and how much you can rise above what you once thought would break you. Pain humbles the ego but elevates the spirit. It strips away false securities and forces you to rely on inner power. This is why so many who have endured great struggles emerge with a deeper sense of clarity and purpose. They are no longer easily shaken because they have walked through storms and discovered they could still stand. Consider the stories of those who shaped history, leaders, creators, thinkers, and visionaries. Rarely did they achieve greatness without enduring hardship. Their legacies were born not from ease, but from their ability to persist when everything around them seemed to collapse. They understood that transformation is not about avoiding trials, but about embracing them as necessary chapters of the journey. You too are being asked to embrace the weight of the moment, not to fear it. The struggle you face is not a wall, but a doorway. But endurance is not only about surviving trials, it is about growing through them. When you choose to persist with wisdom, you become someone stronger than you were before. You are not merely waiting for circumstances to change. You are using the challenge to sharpen your mind, deepen your spirit, and strengthen your resolve. Endurance trains you in patience, disciplines your emotions, and teaches you the art of persistence. It transforms obstacles into stepping stones, pain into wisdom, and delays into preparation. There is also a spiritual dimension to endurance. When you endure with faith, you are declaring that you trust in something greater than your present circumstances. You are acknowledging that life does not unfold on your schedule, but according to a greater design. Faith and endurance go hand in hand because true strength is not found in control, but in surrender. It is in letting go of the need to see immediate results and trusting that the path is shaping you into who you are meant to become. Endurance is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the silent force that carries you through nights of doubt and days of uncertainty. And when you finally reach the moment of transformation, when the weight lifts and clarity dawns, you will realize that it was not the ease of the path that defined you, but the strength you discovered while walking through its difficulties. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a declaration that you are not finished, that your story is still unfolding, and that you are capable of more than you imagined. When the burden feels heavy, remind yourself that this too is part of the journey. You are not being broken, you are being built. You are not being delayed, you are being prepared. Hold your ground, keep your vision alive, and endure with the quiet confidence that transformation is already at work within you. Because endurance is not about surviving until the end. It is about becoming someone new in the process. Life, when observed closely, reveals itself as a series of lessons disguised as ordinary moments. Every keynote we have explored shows us that discipline, resilience, clarity, and focus are not abstract ideals, but living practices that shape who we become. They remind us that our true strength lies not in avoiding struggle, but in learning how to dance with it, to use it as fuel for growth. The patterns of the universe respond to our inner state. When we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with intention, life begins to move in harmony with us. What we resist persists, but what we embrace transforms. The path may be hard, often lonely, and sometimes misunderstood, yet it is through walking this path that we awaken to our higher self. The speech, in its essence, is not just about becoming better, but about becoming whole, living with awareness, courage, and purpose. This is the art of mastering life.